How's it going? So glad to see some people here already. I'm like super psyched to be talking about microbiology today. Microbiology is it's one of my favorite subjects on the TEAS. I studied microbiology actually in school when I did my PhD. I looked at the biochemistry of microbes. So when we start talking about microbiology, I just get so excited. Um, if anyone has trouble hearing me or seeing me or whatever, just let me know. And as we go, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat, and we'll talk through them as we go through this information. So, um, while we're waiting for people to join, this is probably going to be one of the quicker lives that we've done. We're going to work through these 33 must-know questions for microbiology. By the time we're done with this, you're going to have a pretty good idea of the type of questions that show up on the TEAS for microbiology. And I did a live stream on Monday. You can find that on YouTube if you want to brush up on this stuff. And if not, it's no big deal, right? You can just start watching this video, take a look at the questions, kind of see how well you understand this stuff. And if you're a little rusty, there's some gaps in your knowledge, no big deal. You can watch that video and then you can come back and you can watch these. So, totally fine. See how you're doing. Maybe you already know a lot of this stuff, even if you haven't specifically studied. No big deal. Oh, and as I always like to say, if you have any questions, you can send me email, tyler@teasintoneday.com. I'd love to hear from people. I respond to every email that I get. It's so cool to hear if you have positive feedback, if you have questions, even if you have negative feedback. You want to tell me these live streams are awful, send me an email. I'll see what I can do to fix them. Tyler@teasintoneday.com. Let me know. And if you want more of my TEAS resources, you can check out my website, teasintoneday.com. I have a full chemistry course there that covers like all the chemistry stuff you need for the TEAS. So check that out if you like how I teach and you want more of my resources. So today we're focusing on microbiology, which is part of life science, right? And on the TEAS, they're kind of like these, what I consider to be sort of like 8 main topics of life science. Microbiology is one of these 8 topics. Now, I'm making YouTube videos on all these things. A lot of them are lives that are recorded that you can then find on YouTube. So if you look at this list of stuff and genetics and Punnett squares and mitosis, meiosis, totally freaks you out, you should know that I have videos on pretty much all the stuff that you can find. That you can find for free on my YouTube channel. I got playlists and stuff like that. So if you're getting ready to take the TEAS, you look at this topic, this list of life science topics, and you're like, oh no, it's been so long since I've studied this, or, I took a life science class in college, but I, never really understood DNA and RNA. I never really understood mitosis, meiosis. Take a look at my videos, and I think they're going to like answer a lot of those questions for you. And specifically, they're going to help you get ready for the TEAS. So today we're going to be doing the type of microbiology questions that show up on the TEAS. And at a very big level, these are the things that you'll need to know, okay? And you'll see these topics in the questions we're going to do, okay? You're going to need to know a little microbiology history. You're going to need to know about bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and viruses, particularly their similarities and differences, which are made of cells, what kind of cells the different ones are made of. You'll want to know about eukaryotes and prokaryotes and the difference between them. Viruses are big, so you want to know how viruses look, what their structure is, and also what their function is, how they work. You want to know about different types of microscopes. We'll see how the TEAS asks questions about microscopes, because many people like super overstudy when it comes to microscopes. There's only really 2 or 3 specific things you need to know. We'll see examples of those questions. And then there's this whole sort of disease part of microbiology, okay? You need to know some terminology, some vocabulary terms about disease. We'll see that showing up. And then, and this is usually the hardest part for most people, okay? And then you need to be able to see a disease, see the name of a disease, and know what is its cause, okay? So something like, flu you need to know when that's an infectious disease that you can catch from other people, and you need to know that it's caused by a virus, as opposed to something like diabetes, which is not an infectious disease. You can't catch it from other people. It's typically caused by lifestyle, sometimes genetics, things like that. So there are all these diseases that might show up on the T's, and the way they're going to ask you about it is they're going to ask, okay, here's a disease, what caused it? And this is where a lot of people get tripped up because they just like they they don't they don't know that stuff, and they've got to learn it. And it's emphasized on the exam. You see questions on the exam about this stuff, but you don't really see this in the ATI book. Okay, so a lot of people don't know that they need to learn that like measles is a virus, right? Because the ATI book doesn't really like tell you to do like make sure you know that measles is a virus, make sure that you know that whatever is a bacterium. And so people don't study that, and then they see these questions on the exam and they're like, oh my god, I never knew that I needed to study that. Well, I'm telling you, you got to need to study this. When we were doing the live stream on Monday, I gave a couple examples of these type of questions, and there was stuff in the chat that was like, oh gosh, like here it is. Like there's a very similar question when I took the T's, and it looked very similar to this, and I got it wrong because I had no idea that I need to know this stuff. Well, you need to know this stuff, and in my other video, I give you these sort of like tables of diseases that you should know, and you should know what causes them. Obviously, the T's is going to pull some stuff out of left field, and it's hard to predict absolutely everything. But generally, common diseases, I've tried to make lists of those. As I said, if you need to learn this stuff, if you're going through, you see these questions, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have no idea how to answer these, you can check out my microbiology lesson video on YouTube. Got it right there for you to learn all of this stuff, all the most important concepts I cover in that video. And then it's also important to practice the stuff, right? Because just watching the video, yeah, it's good. Maybe it makes it clear, it reminds you of the stuff, but you've really also got to practice it. So I have 2 flashcard decks that I made in Quizlet. And all the stuff, you can find it linked in the description below. So it's like it's about an hour and a half, I think, microbiology lesson that's going to teach you all the micro you need for the T's. And then you can check out the flashcards to practice it on both the basics of microbiology and also the disease stuff that you need to know. Anyway, as we get ready, let me know if you got any other questions. Just type them in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it as we go. So here is our first question. Which term refers to viruses, bacteria, fungi, and protozoa that specifically cause disease? Is it pathogens, eukaryotes, prokaryotes, or microorganisms? Think about it for a sec. Add your answers to the chat, and then we'll go over it. Yeah, some really good responses in the chat. The key here is that we're talking about specifically cause disease. These examples that they gave us, viruses, bacteria, fungi, and protozoa, these are all microbes or microorganisms. They're too small to see with the naked eye. But the reason why microorganisms is not the right answer is because we're talking about microbes that specifically cause disease. And that is what we call pathogens. If you watched my live stream the other day, you may have learned that microbes in general do not cause disease. It's kind of a surprise to people, but the majority of microbes are harmless, or they're even helpful. So if you think about sort of all the microbes in the world, only a small fraction of those actually cause disease. And those ones that do cause disease are referred to as pathogens. Okay, number 2. Young children typically receive the MMR vaccine, which helps protect against measles, mumps, and rubella. These three diseases are caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, or prokaryotes. This is classic tease. It is classic tease. It's like you either know it or you don't. And these diseases that I mentioned here are on the list that I have in the flashcards in the other video. I'm glad to see from the chat that like people are familiar with these things. Measles, mumps, and rubella are all examples of viruses. They're caused by viruses. And the good thing about this is the way they're asking the question, they're asking about measles, mumps, and rubella, and they say these three diseases are caused by, they're all caused by, which means that even if you know only one of those, you can still choose a correct answer. So maybe you know that, measles is a virus, but you didn't know that mumps and rubella were caused by viruses. Well, you can still get the question right because you know one of them is a virus. So whenever you can think of a strategy like that, it's great to use it. Viruses may use which of the following biomolecules as genetic material? Select all that apply. Carbohydrates, DNA, protein enzymes, non-enzymatic proteins, or RNA. Remember when we were talking about microbiology on Monday, we were talking about how viruses are kind of a unique type of microbe. I like to say one of these things is not like the other. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa are all made of cells. Viruses are not made of cells. They're like this other category of things. And so viruses generally have only two parts. Viruses are extremely simple. And viruses have a protein shell that you call the protein capsid. And then inside this protein shell, or the protein capsid, they have some sort of genetic material that carries their genes. Now, the genetic material in viruses can be DNA or RNA. Some viruses have DNA, some viruses have RNA. Okay? But that's the main point here. This other stuff is just there to distract you. Protein enzymes, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Non-enzymatic proteins, absolutely not. Carbohydrates, absolutely not. The two things that carry genes in viruses could be DNA or RNA. Now, this is one of those things where the tease is adding all this extra stuff in here to try and trick you, right? People think, oh, maybe it should be protein enzymes, maybe it should be blah, 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 blah. But the question is, did you ever specifically learn that protein enzymes are genetic material in viruses? Like, did I say that in a video or did you read it somewhere else? I think like Mometrics is hot garbage. I can promise you, even Mometrics would not say that protein enzymes are genetic material. So it's like in viruses. So it's like stick with what you know. Viruses might have DNA, they might have RNA. That's it. You know that, you've learned that. If you learn about microbes, you've learned that. Viruses might have DNA, viruses might have RNA. Done. Fin. That's it. So don't get distracted by all the stuff that the tease is trying to throw at you to try to break your confidence. Okay. Stick with what you know. Viruses are very simple. They have a protein shell known as a capsid, and inside they have either DNA or RNA as their genetic information, and that's it. Nothing else. DNA or RNA and a protein shell. Okay. Which of the following sexually transmitted infections, sometimes called STIs, are caused by bacteria? Select all that apply. Again, classic tease. You either know it or you don't. Folks who've worked in healthcare already, tend to be familiar with common diseases and their causative factors. Folks who've taken a micro often get familiar with this stuff. They're usually not quite as familiar as folks who've been like working in the field. But still a lot of this stuff is like you just sort of get used to it if you've been exposed to it a lot. And something that I often recommend people doing is, do the flashcards I have on the diseases, watch the video that I did on micro, but also just like whenever you hear about a disease, just pull out your phone and find out what causes it. Right? So it's like I was thinking about the other day, like rabies. Okay. Somebody was talking about rabies. I think there's a raccoon in the neighborhood that has rabies. And I was like, okay, I realized I didn't put rabies on the list. I didn't put on the flashcards. I didn't think it was super important, but I was like, perfect example. Somebody mentions rabies. Rabies is caused by a virus, right? Like that kind of thing. Like somebody mentions like Ebola. You hear about Ebola and just be like, do I know what that's caused? Like, is Ebola like a bacteria? Is it a virus? Is it a protozoan? Just like look it up on your phone. And then Ebola is a virus, right? And now you know another one. So it's just like learn the stuff on the flashcards. And then whenever you like hear about a disease or whatever, or think of a disease, just like pull out your phone, find out what causes it. And the more diseases you know, the better prepared you're going to be for the teas. Okay, so let's just go through this real quick. Chlamydia. Yes, chlamydia is caused by a bacteria. Herpes, that's an STI. No, herpes is caused by a virus. HIV, that's caused by a virus. It's in the name, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. Gonorrhea is caused by a bacterium. And trichomoniasis, what's that caused by? This is an outlier. It's a weird one, but the TEAS likes it because it's weird. It is one of the few diseases that has a protozoan cause. Trichomoniasis is caused by a protozoan. It's like super weird. It's an outlier. So anyway, bacteria, chlamydia, and gonorrhea. The others are all either viruses or protozoans. Okay. Which components are present in both human cells and bacterial cells? Select all that apply. A similar question gave people a little bit of trouble the other day in the lesson video. So I'm just going to step back, let you think about this for a second. This is like very question. Like all of these questions are really important for the TEAS. This is like really, 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 really important for the TEAS. Like I can just imagine them asking something very similar. The thing that is most important here is that we're talking about, let's sort of, think through this question. Okay, we're talking about human cells and bacterial cells. So what I want to ask when I think about a question like this on the TEAS, the first thing that I want to think is what is the difference? What's the difference? And the important difference here is that bacteria and humans are both made of cells. We're not viruses, and that's a good thing. But the kind of cells that we are made of is different. Okay, humans are made of eukaryotic cells, and bacteria are made of prokaryotic cells. Now, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells are different in a couple ways. I always like to say that prokaryotes are like go-karts and eukaryotes are like Ferraris. A prokaryotic cell is a simpler, smaller version of a cell, and it's missing some of the parts that you have in eukaryotic cells. So prokaryotic cells are smaller and simpler. And we often talk about them in terms of what they don't have. They don't have no nucleus. They do not have a membrane around the DNA protecting it. That's basically what a nucleus is. It's a membrane around the DNA. They have no nucleus, and they have no real organelles. Okay? If you learn these four things about bacteria, prokaryotic cells, That's pretty much all you need to know. They are smaller and simpler compared to eukaryotic cells. They have no nucleus. The DNA is just floating around all over the place. And they have no real organelles. So let's go step by step. A, do which are present in both membrane-bound nucleus? Absolutely not, because we just said bacteria don't have a nucleus. Human or eukaryotic cells do. Cell membrane. Yes. All cells have to have a cell membrane. The cell membrane is the coating, it's the cover that, as I always say, keeps the outsides out and the insides in. If you're a cell and you don't have a membrane, you're dead. If you're a cell and you don't have a membrane, it's like, having a house that doesn't have walls. I mean, I guess like if you lived in a really nice climate, you could have a house that doesn't have walls. But yeah, you know what? A cell without a cell membrane is like a water balloon without the balloon. It just doesn't exist. So if you're a cell, you have to have a cell membrane. Okay, so B. Ribosomes. Ribosomes are little things inside of a cell that help make protein. It's where protein synthesis, protein making happens. Everybody has ribosomes. Bacteria have ribosomes. Humans have ribosomes. Yeast have. You gotta have ribosomes. Mitochondria. What's a mitochondria? Mitochondria is a complex organelle that is involved with extracting energy from food. It helps break down food and extract usable energy. Sometimes they're called the powerhouses of the cell. They're power plants of the cell. They burn the food and give you energy. Mitochondria, what is it? It's a real organelle. It's a serious, super-powered organelle on steroids. Mitochondria would not be present in a bacteria. And finally, DNA. Yeah, bacteria have to have DNA. You got to have DNA. You got to have DNA. If you are a living cell, you have DNA. In a human, the DNA is in a nucleus. In the bacteria, the DNA is just like floating around everywhere, but you have to have DNA. Only one thing can have something else as genetic material, and that's viruses, right? Viruses might have DNA, they might have RNA, but viruses aren't really even living, right? So if you are a living cell, your hard drive, your operating system, your blueprints, whatever you want to call it, are DNA. So bacteria have DNA, humans have DNA, plants have DNA, you have DNA. So if you are a cell of any type, you have cell membrane, you have ribosomes, you have DNA. Boom. B, C, and E. Okay. Any questions about that? B, C, and E. T is lol. B, C, and E. Lyme disease and leptospirosis are diseases caused by spirochetes, which are a type of, look at this. This is so tease it hurts, okay? They're giving you more information than you need here. They're talking about spirochetes. Yeah, sure, that's interesting, that's nice. But you don't have to know anything about spirochetes to answer this question. You also are given Lyme disease and leptospirosis, okay? But they are both caused by one thing. So even if you know one and not the other, you'll still be okay. So do you know what causes Lyme disease? Maybe. Do you know what causes leptospirosis? Maybe. Okay, that increases your chances. Some different kind of questions. Some different kind of answers here. This is a good one. It's a really good one to know because it's a little bit weird. People are sometimes confused by it. I see about half of people are thinking bacteria, half of people are thinking protozoan. And I would agree that those are like, those are usually the two choices people are stuck between. The TEAS knows that you are going to be stuck between bacteria and protozoan, which is why this is such a great sort of practice TEAS question, because they know that people aren't going to be able to choose between B and D, so they're going to ask something like this. And the answer is, surprisingly, it is B. Lyme disease and leptospirosis are diseases caused by bacteria. A spirochete is a type of bacteria that has a corkscrew shape. if you've ever taken microbiology, you learn that different bacteria have different shapes. You have rods, you have what are called cocci, you have spirochetes that are spiral shaped. And so Lyme disease and leptospirosis are both spirochetes. They're spiral shaped spirochetes. Now, what's interesting about Lyme disease and leptospirosis is they're both examples of diseases that we usually catch from the environment. And this is sometimes why people think that they might be protozoan. They're not protozoan, but people think they're protozoan-like because Lyme disease we get from tick bites, and leptospirosis can be transmitted from animal bites. If a cat has leptospirosis and it bites you, it can pass that to you. So we don't really ever get Lyme disease from another person who's sick with it. Same with leptospirosis. We get it from the environment. It's an infectious disease, but we get it from the environment. So Lyme disease and leptospirosis, bacteria. You just got to know it. You got to know it. You got to know it. You got to know it. Which of the following are non-infectious diseases? Select all that apply. What's a non-infectious disease? It's a disease that you don't catch from other people or from the environment. It's also known as a non-communicable disease or a non-transmissible disease. I'll write these down while you're thinking about it, just so you know. Non-transmissible. Is that a B? Non-transmissible. Non-communicable. These might also be called non-transmissible or non-communicable diseases. Does leptospirosis have to do with urine? I am not an expert on leptospirosis. So I don't know. I know that it's caused by a spirochete. Leptospirosis is very common in the southern hemisphere in South America. If you're a microbiologist in like Brazil or Argentina, leptospirosis is like very interesting to you. We don't have much in the way of leptospirosis up in particularly the United States, so I can't answer your question very well. Okay, look, there's a lot of uncertainty in the chat, and that's great. I love to see people getting answers wrong. Can I tell you why? Because when you get answers wrong here, you're going to learn the right answer here. Right? It's like, I don't want you getting this stuff wrong on the T's. I want you getting it wrong here, because then you can figure out what the right answer is. You can learn why you were wrong, and then you can move on. Right? So you get things wrong, no big deal. Going to get it wrong? We'll fix it. And then you'll learn what you need to know. And you know what? This is something that I believe so strongly. How do we best remember something? We remember things by messing up, by doing something incorrectly and having somebody point out why we were wrong, showing us the right answer, and then giving us a chance to move on to do it again or something like that, right? So it's like, you get this stuff wrong, no big deal. Get it wrong here. Let me show you the right answer. It'll stick in your mind. And then when you take the T's, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen questions like this. I know exactly what the right answer is. Okay. So don't feel bad about getting things wrong. I love to see people getting things wrong, because it means that we can do the work. We can improve your score. We can help you crush the T's. Okay. If everybody was getting all the questions right all the time, I'd be like, you don't need me. You don't need to be watching this video. If everybody was always getting the stuff right, I'd be like, this video is a waste of time, because you already know all this stuff, right? It's like when people are getting things wrong, it's like, good. I'm going to teach you this so that you'll learn it. It'll stick in your mind. You will crush the T's. Okay. Now, let's go step by step. Which of the following are non-infectious diseases? Diseases that we cannot catch from other people or from the environment. AIDS. No, AIDS is an infectious disease. You catch it from other people. Osteoarthritis. That is a fancy word for arthritis. Arthritis is a non-infectious disease. Okay, you don't typically catch arthritis from other people. Hemophilia. What's hemophilia? Hemophilia is a problem where your blood doesn't properly clot. And hemophilia is caused by genetics. It's one of the most famous genetic diseases that is passed from parent to child. And hemophilia is a genetic disorder. You cannot catch hemophilia from somebody else. It is a non-infectious disease. Sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is another genetic disorder. In sickle cell anemia, people's red blood cells can take on the shape of a sickle, or that's sort of like a moon shaped. And because they have that shape, they can get stuck in blood vessels, and that causes a lot of pain, and it can cause clots, and it's generally a bad thing. It has a genetic cause. It's a mutation. And finally, tuberculosis. What is tuberculosis? It is an infectious disease. It is a long-term lung infection caused by bacterium. And man, tuberculosis is rough. People who get tuberculosis have to be on lots of different antibiotics. Most types of tuberculosis that infect people these days are resistant to many different types of antibiotics. And so, yeah, most people don't get tuberculosis in the United States generally, and in more developed countries, and be happy that tuberculosis isn't going around Kansas right now. Okay, choose the incorrect statement. A, bacteria typically have a cell wall. B, viruses can reproduce and grow on their own. C, eukaryotic cells have a membrane-bound nucleus. Or D, animal cells are larger than bacterial cells. I'm so happy to see these comments. They make me so happy. I'm so happy that these videos are helpful for people. As I always say, people who are getting ready to take the TEAS, who are ready to take the next step in their life, they are some of the bravest people I know. This is not an easy test. The TEAS is an obstacle that is in the way of your dreams, and people who take this test are so brave. They're doing something so courageous. They have to put a lot of work in it. They're also typically very busy people. And so it is so freaking fun that I get to teach the stuff that I enjoy. I try to make it fun for all of you guys too. But it is so fun that I get to help you, pass this test, crush this test, and move past this barrier and get onto your dream. So I love seeing all these positive comments. Let's go step by step. Bacteria typically have a cell wall. Now, we haven't talked about that much. So I'm just going to put a question mark there. We'll come back to it. A. B. Viruses can reproduce and grow on their own. What do you think? No. Viruses cannot reproduce and grow on their own. They need a host cell. So this is probably the right answer right here. Let's look at the others. Eukaryotic cells have a membrane-bound nucleus. Yes, that is correct. We're looking for the incorrect statement. Animal cells are larger than bacterial cells. Yes, how do we know? Well, animal cells are eukaryotes. Bacterial cells are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are like golf carts or go-karts. Animal cells are like Ferraris, or they're like trucks. Okay? Animal cells much bigger, much more complex than simple prokaryotic bacterial cells. So this is cross this off. So now we narrow this down. We have A and we have B. Okay? Some of you may know A, but let's imagine you have no idea whether or not bacteria have a cell wall. Well, what do I say? Stick with what you know. We have learned, I've said it over and over again, that bacteria cannot reproduce and grow on their own. That's why they're not considered living. They have to use a host cell for this. So even if you are not sure about A, You can look at B. And if you've watched my video or if you learn anything about viruses, you know they cannot reproduce and grow on their own. So choose B. Don't get sidetracked and say, oh, maybe I should choose A because I'm not sure. And this is probably a trick. No. Stick with what you know. Stick with what you know. Bacteria do have a cell wall. Basically, if you've taken micro, you may know that you can classify bacteria into two big groups based on whether their cell wall is outside of the cell or whether their cell wall is more inside and it has a cell membrane outside of it. Bacteria that have a cell wall facing the outside are called gram-positives. Bacteria that have a cell wall more on the inside with a cell membrane on the outside, they're called gram-negatives. So, yes, B is correct, is the correct choice because it's the wrong statement. It is wrong. Viruses cannot reproduce and grow on their own. They need a host to reproduce. They need a living cell that they can take advantage of, that they can hijack. Okay. If there are any questions about that, just let me know. Just let me know. Which type of microscope would be most appropriate to visualize ribosomes and other small organelles within a cell? Is it A, bright field microscope, B, dark field microscope, C, polarization microscope, or D, transmission electron microscope? Now, you might remember that earlier I said microscopes are something you have to be familiar with for the TEAS. But people overstudy microscopes for the TEAS so much because there's really only a few things you need to know. If you look in the ATI book, they give you all these different names of microscopes and what they do. And say, but at the end of the day, you really only need to know a few things. And those are that electron microscopes have incredibly high magnification and high resolution. High magnification and high resolution. And all the other types of microscopes use light, which typically gives you a lower magnification and lower resolution. So anytime you need to see something that is super small, super detailed, an electron microscope is your best choice. The reason why we know that we're talking about an electron microscope here is because we're talking about ribosomes. Ribosomes are tiny, small organelles. Those are like our tip-offs, okay? If they said, what would be really good to, look at a big giant cell, or you want to look at a colony of thousands of bacteria, well, then you know that we're looking at something that's bigger. But here, the type of question you're going to see on the TEAS is like ribosomes that are tiny, small organelles. We need good magnification. We need good resolution. An electron microscope is going to be your best bet. So just look through the answer choices and find where it says electron microscope. That's going to be what you want. Next one. Which of the following diseases causes fever, body aches, and severe fatigue and is transmitted from mosquitoes? There are a handful of questions on the TEAS that are like this, that go a step beyond bacteria, virus, fungi, and ask you about disease symptoms. You might see questions like this, which is why in the flashcards that I made and in the video that I did, I pointed out the common symptoms for many of the diseases that you should know. Most people generally kind of have an idea of sort of the diseases, the symptoms that various diseases are caused, but it's worth just brushing up. Now, luckily, this question isn't just about the symptoms, but it also gives you a huge clue. And this is the huge clue, that it's transmitted from mosquitoes. Okay? One of these is not like the other. One of these is transmitted from mosquitoes. And malaria is the only one that's transmitted from mosquitoes. And malaria also, like tuberculosis, is a terrible disease to have. Malaria is caused by protozoan, but it is a terrible disease to have. It causes fever, body ache, severe fatigue. You don't want to get malaria. That's a real pain. Something that's interesting about all these choices, just so you can see them, is if this were a T's problem, the T's would have chosen these for various reasons because these are all diseases that are transmitted from animals. Okay, leptospirosis is typically transmitted by mammal bites. Malaria, obviously mosquitoes. Lyme disease, tick bites, and African sleeping sickness, or trypanosomiasis. I can't ever say that. I've practiced so many times. Is transmitted by a bite from the tsetse fly. So, malaria, a really rough disease caused by a mosquito bite. The mosquito puts a protozoan into your blood. Which of the following can be transmitted from one person to another? In other words, which is transmissible, which is communicable, which is infectious? A, Alzheimer's disease, B, liver cancer, C, cholera, or D, diabetes? Which of these is most likely to be transmitted from one affected person to another? Luckily, I don't think people are going to have too much trouble with a question like this. If you see a question like this on the T's, I'm so happy for you. You got lucky. Go for it. C, cholera. Cholera is caused by bacteria. It's a really bad diarrhea infection, but luckily it can be treated with antibiotics pretty well. So, cholera. Which of the following is caused by a virus? Influenza, strep throat, anthrax, or ringworm? Influenza, strep throat, anthrax, or ringworm. Oh, I'm so happy to see all these correct answers. Of course, I'm also happy to see when, you get things wrong and we can fix it. But yeah, virus causes influenza or flu. Let's just go through these real quick, though, for the others so that it can help reinforce this. Strep throat, what causes that? Bacteria, the Streptococcus bacteria. Anthrax, what causes that? Bacteria. Ringworm, what causes that? Fungi. Boom. Which type of microscope does not use light to form an image? Okay. What you need to know for this question, what we'll talk about in a sec. I'll let you think it over. I don't want to give anyone the answer right away. Is it confocal laser microscope, scanning electron microscope, fluorescence microscope, or phase contrast microscope? Look at all these correct answers. Scanning electron microscope. What's the tip off here? Electron. There are two types of microscopes. Ones that use light to see things, and ones that use electrons to see things. Microscopes that use electrons to see things have electron in the name. Those that use light are what I like to say, all the others. So if you have electron in your name, you're an electron microscope. A confocal laser microscope doesn't say electron, it uses light. Fluorescence microscope doesn't say electron, it uses light. Phase contrast microscope, you get the point. No electron, light. B, scanning electron microscope, that is an electron microscope. It uses electrons, does not use light. That's how you're going to remember it. Which of the following is not an example of mycosis? Athlete's foot, malaria, yeast infection, or ringworm? Okay. This is tricky. They're kind of like two things you got to know here. Bunch of things you got to know here. Yeah, okay, good. First, mycosis. What the heck does that mean? It is a fungus infection. So this question for folks who don't know these things is double tricky because they're not saying which of the following is not caused by fungus. They're saying which of the following is not an example of mycosis. Okay, so you got to know what mycosis means. If you don't know what mycosis means, you're just like, you're out of luck. So that's why I'm always like talking about like the words you got to know. So anyway, mycosis, fungal infection. So at the end of the day, they're asking which of these is not caused by fungus. Well, let's go step by step. Athlete's foot. What's that? Itchy, scaly feet that are caused by fungus. Fungus. Malaria. What's malaria? I'll tell you right now, malaria is the right answer. Because malaria is caused by a protozoan. But now some people were a little bit confused about C, yeast infection. Here's the thing. Yeast infection. Yeast are a type of fungus. Some people don't know that. Yeast are a type of fungus. That's correct. Yeast and mold are fungus. I'll write that in here, plus mold. Now, fungus is a big category that includes yeast and mold. Yeast and mold. So a yeast infection, you know it's going to be a fungal infection. Finally, ringworm. Ringworm is a fungal infection of the skin. Athlete's foot is actually a type of ringworm, but whatever. It's like it's all caused by fungus. So yeah, so malaria, which is caused by a protozoan that gets into your blood because of a mosquito bite. There you go. B, malaria is not an example of mycosis. It is not caused by fungus infection. Viruses are typically considered non-living because they, A, do not contain DNA, B, cannot grow or reproduce without a host, C, cause disease in humans and other organisms, or D, are surrounded by a protein coat and not a membrane. Why are they typically considered non-living? Because they cannot grow or reproduce without a host. Do not contain DNA? No. Many contain DNA, some contain RNA, but forget it. Cause disease in humans? Absolutely they cause. That has nothing to do with whether or not they're considered non-living. They cause disease. It has nothing to do with it. Like bacteria are living, they cause disease. Protozoans are living, they cause disease. That's nonsense. Are surrounded by a protein coat and not a membrane? That's true, but that's not why we say that they're non-living. We say they're non-living because they cannot grow or reproduce without a host. Mycosis. Oh, look, there it is again. Boom. Mycosis. Mycosis could be caused by which of the following? Oh, look at this question. This is like so perfect tease, because the tease loves to screw you, right? They come up with the craftiest, most creative, the most clever ways to mess you up, to trip you up. So mycosis could be caused by which of the following pathogens? Mycobacteria, mycoplasma, mycovirus, or yeast. Do you see why this is such a tricky question? Why it's written to trip you up? Well, because mycosis means a fungal infection. But they give you these 3 other names that have myco in them. But they are not fungus. Mycobacteria is a bacteria, not a fungus. Cross it off. We're looking for the fungus. Mycoplasma is not a fungus. It's a type of bacteria. Mycoplasma. Mycovirus. I don't even think that exists. I think that's just a made-up name. I don't know. Maybe I should check, but I don't think mycoviruses exist. D, yeast. Yes, because yeast is a type of fungus. Mycobacteria does not cause mycosis. Mycoplasma does not cause mycosis. Yeast causes mycosis. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Yeah, such a great way to try to trip you up, right? Remember that. Mycobacteria and mycoplasma do not cause mycosis. You think they would. They don't. They don't. It's fungus. So fungus, yeast, mold cause mycosis. Which of the following explains why electron microscopy has a higher resolution than light microscopy? It's a good question. This is just something you have to know. And that is that light and electrons both travel as waves. Light looks like this. Electrons look like that. This area here, we call it wavelength. And as you can see, the wavelength in electrons, or the wavelength for electrons, is much smaller than the wavelength in light. And that's why you get better magnification, better resolution from electrons. It's just one of those things you just have to know. You don't need to know why. It gets into some relatively complex physics. The TEAS is not going to ask you about that. You just have to know if you see a question like this, shorter wavelength for electrons compared to light gives you better magnification resolution. Which of the following is not an example of a communicable disease? What's a communicable disease? An infectious disease. It's one that you can catch from another person or from the environment. Is it A, Down syndrome, B, COVID-19, C, syphilis, D, mycoplasma pneumoniae? There should be an E here. Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Yes. I think most people know this. Down syndrome. You can't catch Down syndrome from somebody. It's caused by an individual with Down syndrome has the wrong number of chromosomes. They have an extra chromosome. This is caused by chromosomal disjunction during meiosis. A patient appears at a medical facility experiencing high fever, a skin rash, and flu-like symptoms. These symptoms are consistent with A, measles, B, mumps, C, dengue fever, D, cholera. High fever, skin rash, flu-like symptoms. And the answer, this is just one of those things you got to know. Measles. It's a skin rash. Mumps causes salivary gland inflammation. It's really painful to swallow. Dengue fever causes all sorts of high fever and stuff like that, but typically not a skin rash like that. And cholera, diarrhea. Okay, you guys are good with this. Which of the following scientists is best known for their contributions to the field of microscopy? You either know it or you don't. Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, Charles Darwin. Okay. The two names you should know are van Leeuwenhoek, and you should also know Robert Hooke. The two Hookes are the two folks who are generally considered inventors of the microscope. Just know it. You just got to know it. It's typical TEAS. Which of the following can be transmitted from a person who is affected? In other words, which is infectious, which is transmissible, which is communicable? Is it A, cataract, B, muscular dystrophy, C, tuberculosis, D, cystic fibrosis? We'll go one by one. Cataract, it's a clouding of the lens of the eye, typically just caused by age. Muscular dystrophy is caused by genetic mutation. Tuberculosis caused by a bacterium. Cystic fibrosis is a lung disorder that is caused by mutation. C. Choose the incorrect pairing. Non-infectious disease, genetic mutation. Non-infectious disease, protozoan. Infectious disease, virus. Infectious disease, helminth. Which is incorrect here? Which is the incorrect pairing? Keep in mind, this is the incorrect pairing, which is wrong. Which is wrong. Okay. Let's go step by step. A non-infectious disease means you can't catch it from anyone else or from the environment, caused by genetic mutation. Yes, that is correct, which means it is wrong. Non-infectious disease, protozoan. What do you think about that? What's a protozoan? It's a type of organism, it's a microorganism that causes disease like malaria, like sleeping sickness, trichomoniasis. So protozoans cause infectious disease. So this is probably going to be our right answer. C, infectious disease, virus. Absolutely. Viruses cause infectious disease. D, infectious disease, helminth. What's a helminth? What's a helminth? A helminth is the name for a worm. And a worm is an example of an animal. Worms are animals. Worms are not considered microbes because you can see them with your eyes, but they can still cause disease. Nonetheless, they can cause infectious diseases. And ask, who wants to get tapeworm? Nobody wants to get tapeworm. And that means that B is incorrect. Which of the following is not considered a micro? Oh, look at this. Which of the following is not considered a microorganism? Helminth, yeast, protozoan, protist. Well, kind of already know this. It's a helminth, which is a worm. You can definitely see a worm with your eyes. Some people might see protist and they're like, what the heck is that? And basically, protists are protozoans. Protozoans. Just no, it's like similar word. That's an easy way to remember. Protists and protozoans are essentially the same. Choose the correct pairing. Tetanus virus, herpes bacteria, malaria protozoan, AIDS genetic mutation. What is it? What is it? The correct pairing. We want the correct pairing here. Yeah, tetanus. Is tetanus caused by a virus? No, it's caused by a bacterium. Herpes. Herpes caused by a bacterium? No, it's caused by a virus. C. Is malaria caused by a protozoan? Yep, it is. Probably correct. AIDS. Is that caused by a genetic mutation? No, it's caused by the HIV, human immunodeficiency virus. C. Remember that, just looking over the things here, remember that tetanus is caused by a bacterium. It's not a virus. It's caused by a bacterium. Which of the following correctly describes the structure of viruses? Contain a nucleus with DNA and a protein capsid. Contain a genome of DNA or RNA surrounded by a lipid membrane. Contain ribosomes and a protein coat but no nucleic acid. Contain a genome of DNA or RNA surrounded by a protein capsid. Okay. Okay, so we have some disagreement in the answers, which is great. It means that if you took the TEAS right now, you might get this wrong. And that means that in 2 minutes after we've explained it, when you take the TEAS, you'll get a question like this right. Okay? So bring on the misconceptions, bring on the confusion. We will get you ready for the TEAS. 2 things you need to know about viruses is they have a protein shell, which we call a capsid. And inside of that protein shell, we have some genetic material. We have some genes. And that may be DNA, or it might be RNA. And if we want to get really fancy, we can call that the genome. The genome is the sum total of all the DNA or RNA that you have in your body. So it's a little more complicated than that, but it's good enough for here. So yeah, protein shell on the outside, that's capsid, DNA or RNA on the inside. And so that means that D is the correct answer. Look at this. Look at this. If you chose B, it's incorrect because it says lipid membrane. Lipid membrane. No. Some viruses do have a lipid membrane, but many do not. All of them have a protein shell. And so this is a great example of like a TEAS question where you're looking for the best answer. All viruses have a protein capsid. All of them have DNA or RNA. So just FYI. Coming up to the end here. Which of the following refers to a disease caused by fungus? Flatworm, ringworm, roundworm, tapeworm. Huh, worm, 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 worm. So remember, helminth is a worm animal. Flatworm, no, that's a helminth. Ringworm, that is a fungus. Roundworm, that's a helminth. Tapeworm, that's a helminth. Ringworm, fungus or fungal skin infection. Ringworm is called ringworm because if you get it on skin, on like skin on your arms or on your trunk, it is like a ring. It looks like a circle of infection. So that's why they call it ringworm. It's not a worm. That's like, yep, Tenea. Ringworm is ringworm is also referred to as Tenea. That's a good thing to know. Ringworm, also Tenea. But the most important thing to know is that ringworm is not a worm. And man, the TEAS is going to try to bust that one out on you. Just the way mycobacteria does not cause mycosis, ringworm is not a worm. And of course, the TEAS is going to try to trick you on that because they want to do it. Ringworm is not a worm. It's caused by fungus. Mycobacteria, mycoplasma does not cause mycosis. Select the communicable disease: high blood pressure, trichomoniasis, diabetes, atherosclerosis, atherosclerosis. What is it? The communicable disease, the one that we can get infected with from another person or from the environment. B, trichomoniasis. It is an STD. It is caused by protozoans. The others are all caused by lifestyle, genetics, stuff like that. Which of the following is not caused by protozoans, protists? Remember, protozoan and protists are sort of interchangeable. Is it dengue fever, trichomoniasis? We just talked about that. Malaria or sleeping sickness? Not caused by protozoans. What is it? Silence. Yeah, this is a little bit harder, right? It's really important to know this stuff. Not caused by protozoans. We can eliminate some. We can eliminate some right away. Okay? Which is not caused by protozoans. Not caused by protozoans. What is like the poster child for a protozoan disease? It is like the most important, the best well-known protozoan disease. That would be malaria. If people know one protozoan disease, they should know malaria. Okay. What are other protozoan diseases? We just talked about in the previous one, trichomoniasis, an STD caused by protozoans. Okay. So now it's between dengue fever and sleeping sickness. Yeah, we'll talk about protozoans in a sec. Sleeping sickness is the other type of protozoan disease, and that means that our correct answer is dengue fever. Dengue fever is caused by a virus, and dengue fever is caused by a virus that is transmitted from mosquitoes. Transmitted from mosquitoes. Dengue fever, dengue fever is a terrible thing to get. It makes you super sick. The first time you get it, it makes you sick. It's terrible. But the second time you get it, It's even worse because your body, your immune system recognizes it. And the third time you get it, you're like, it could kill you, right? So dengue fever is not something that you wanna get. Um, you know, it's something, or I should say that you should try not to get dengue fever, right? So dengue fever caused by a virus, not caused by protozoan. So there's a question: can I explain protozoan again? Well, sure. Protozoan is one type of microbe that causes disease. There are four microbe types or microbe categories that cause diseases: viruses, bacteria, fungi, and protozoans. And protozoans is one of those categories, just one of these four categories. Now, fungi and protozoans are eukaryotes. Bacteria are prokaryotes. And so, yeah, so protozoans are like these eukaryotic cells that get into you and they cause disease. That's really all you have to know about this. So, any more questions? And the three protozoan diseases that are most important to know are malaria, sleeping sickness, and trichomoniasis. Sleeping sickness, also sometimes called African trypanomyosis. What are the causative agents of many skin infections, such as ringworm, jock itch, and athlete's foot? Well, jock itch and athlete's foot are types of ringworm, but whatever. Ringworm, jock itch, and athlete's foot. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, viruses. Boom, boom, boom. Fungi. Remember, ringworm, not a worm. It's a fungus infection. Choose the incorrect statement about microbes. Many bacteria are harmless or helpful. Fungi are decomposers. Viruses can reproduce with or without a host cell. Protozoa are unicellular eukaryotes. There may be some terms here that are a little unfamiliar to you. So let's go through this and see how you would tackle a question like this. Okay? 1. Many bacteria are harmless or helpful. Now, that's something that I've said many times. It's something that maybe you've learned in a micro class. So I'm guessing most folks will be able to get rid of A. Okay? Many bacteria are harmless or helpful. B, fungi are decomposers. You may not know about that. Okay, so we're going to put a question mark right there. C, viruses can reproduce with or without a host, right? Like ding, 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 ding. I've said that many a time. I'm sure you've learned that from other books and from classes. So that's probably right. D, protozoa are unicellular eukaryotes. Now, we've certainly learned that protozoa are eukaryotes. Fungi and protozoa are examples of eukaryotes. But you might be either unicellular, is it? I'm not really sure. So you could be in a situation where you can comfortably cross off A, but then like B, C, D, well, it's sort of like you aren't totally comfortable with crossing out B. You're not totally comfortable with crossing out D. Fine, that's fine. I get it. But is there one that just jumps out at you as the right answer? And I would say, I would hope that C does. I would hope that you'd be like, yeah, Tyler has said like a zillion times that viruses must have a host cell, that they cannot reproduce without a host cell. So C is correct. B, yes, fungi are decomposers. They break stuff down. They grow on dead animals, dead plants, garbage, stuff like that. They break it down, they turn it back into soil. Protozoa are unicellular eukaryotes. Unicellular just means that they can live individually as individual cells, as opposed to something like a person that's made of like trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. We are multicellular eukaryotes. Protozoa are like individual eukaryotes, just like floating around. Is this the last one? Second to last one. Pneumonia can be caused by which of the following? Select all that apply. Bacteria, fungus, mycoplasma, genetic mutation, or virus. Bacteria, fungus, mycoplasma, genetic mutation, or virus. Pneumonia. What is this? Spelled it wrong. What is pneumonia? A lung infection. It is not a specific disease. It's a lung infection. And so pneumonia can be caused by a bacteria. Yes. Pneumonia can be caused by fungus. Yes, it can. Pneumonia can be caused by mycoplasma. Yeah, mycoplasma is a type of bacteria that often causes what we call walking pneumonia, which is a type of pneumonia that is not so bad. So people walk around with it. So yes, it can be caused by mycoplasma, which is a type of bacteria. Genetic mutation, no. That's not going to cause a lung infection. Or I should say lung, I said infection. That's wrong. Inflammation. Oh, lung inflammation. E virus. Yes. Could be caused by virus. Okay. A, B, C, and E. Here's the last one. Which of the following pairings is incorrect? Influenza, virus. Down syndrome, chromosome non-disjunction. Herpes, bacteria. Sickle cell anemia, genetic mutation. Influenza is caused by a virus. Get rid of it because we're looking for the incorrect choice. Down syndrome, abnormal number of chromosomes, chromosomal disjunction, crossed off. Herpes, bacteria. Probably that is the right answer. Herpes is caused by a virus. Sickle cell anemia, definitely caused by genetic mutation. Cross it off. C is our correct answer. Herpes is caused by viruses. So, how did you do? Like, how did this feel? If it felt good, awesome. It's safe to say that you have learned the most important stuff that you need to know for the test. Your knowledge of microbiology is in pretty good shape. Now, as I always say, 10% of the teas, a handful of questions on any test, are just pulled from outer space, and there's no way to predict them. Okay? There's no way you can prepare for them. There's no way you can predict them. But what I can say is if you can answer all these questions that we did, or most of these questions with confidence, and you can get the answers right, you are in as good shape as you can ever be. You still might see a microbiology question that the TEAS throws at you that I couldn't answer. I've got a freaking PhD in microbiology, and I've seen questions on the TEAS that I don't know the answer to. I call my microbiology friends, other friends with PhDs, and I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing or that thing? So my point is, you still might see a question that is confusing, but for the 80, 90% of common questions you're going to see, if you can get through these questions, you're in good shape. Okay. Now, what if you weren't so confident? What if you were a little bit confused? No big deal. I have a video on YouTube. I posted it yesterday. Go to my YouTube channel, watch that. It covers all the most important information. If you watch that video and you learn the stuff, you can answer every single one of the questions that we just did. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff, I could never learn this, just watch the video. I posted the video yesterday and somebody commented on it. They said, oh, this video, I wish I could have become a nurse in the 1600s. Right. And that was a joke because my microscopes and microbiology were sort of invented in the late 1600s. So I think they were saying, I'd love to become a nurse before I had to learn all this stuff. Well, I totally understand because there is some stuff you got to learn, but nurses and doctors didn't do much in the 1600s before we knew about microbiology. They typically didn't even know what was causing most diseases. So, I don't know what it'd be like to be a nurse in the 1600s, but it might be a little frustrating. Regardless, watch the video. You'll learn all the stuff that you need to learn. Then you want to make sure you practice it. I got Quizlet flashcards. All the stuff is linked in the description below. Just like go to the description below. You'll get the flashcards. practice this stuff. Practice the diseases, practice the terms, practice the microbiology basics. I bet that going through these questions has already made it like easier for you to learn this disease stuff. You've started to get a sense of what's a protozoan, what's a bacteria, what's a virus. That's all you need to know. You just need to know this stuff. You need to recognize these diseases, what are infectious, what are non-infectious, stuff like that. So if you need to brush up on it, watch my video, look at the flashcards. Okay. Any questions about this stuff, about the science section in general, about the chemistry, the biology, the whatever? Just let me know. You can put in the chat below. As it says 32 must know questions. I actually did 33. So you got a bonus, right? You got a bonus. You got 33 must know questions. I always say if you have any questions, I just want to say thank you. You just want to say hi. Like I love hearing from people. Tyler at teasingoneday.com. You know where to find me. I always write back to whenever anyone writes me. I write back. I love hearing from people. If you want to check out my other TEAS resources, I have a full course on the chemistry, all the most important chemistry that you need to know for the TEAS, because I know that chemistry like trips up a lot of people. A lot of people haven't taken chemistry, but they still have to get a good score on the TEAS. So it's like I put together a full course on all the chemistry you need for the TEAS. You can find that at teasingoneday.com. And if you're really pressed for time, like you can do it in one day, which is why it's like TEAS in one day. If you're really pressed for time, you can do it in one day. If not, you can spread out the studying and study here, study there, that kind of thing. But course covers all the most important stuff all the important chemistry stuff that you need to know for the TEAS. Chemistry courses are really great and helpful. Thank you so much. I worked really hard to try to make it good and helpful. So I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to hear that. I know people really struggle with the chemistry. They're really scared of it, and I wanted to try to help. Anyway, any other questions that I can help with? Just in general, about studying, about the TEAS, about whatever. Just let me know. If I can help in any way, need some advice, whatever, send me email, check out my website, and I just bought your course. Thank you so much for breaking it down in a way we can understand. I'm so happy to hear that. It's my pleasure to break this stuff down in a way that you can understand. Like, I know this sounds cheesy, but it's like I can't even like describe how much joy I get out of like making this stuff clear so that you can stop worrying and you can learn it and you can pass the test and you can get on with whether you're going into nursing or ultrasound or surgical tech, or like whatever you're doing. It's just like I just want to help you get past this test and get on with your life. Is there any more live stream videos coming up? Yeah, I plan to do some more stuff on a little bit more on DNA, and I'll let you know. Maybe Friday. I don't know. And then I'm going to start doing videos, I think, on scientific reasoning. So I am so happy that you can finally understand the subject, because that's my goal. I want this to stick in your mind like glue. And as I always say, people are often scared of science. They're often scared of particularly the types of science on the TEAS. They're scared of chemistry. They're scared of microbiology. They're scared of stuff like DNA and RNA and stuff like that. I really don't think this stuff is hard if you have a teacher who breaks it down and goes step by step. I think this is hard for people because a lot of videos don't really teach. They just recite definitions at you. And that's not a good way to learn. Nobody learns like that. And it makes me so happy to hear from people who are like, I never thought I could learn this stuff. I never thought I could understand it. And now I can understand it. It's like, good. That's what I want. That's what I want. So anyway, I drop anything for your lives and courses. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to see all these familiar names too. It's so cool to see all these people I love to see that, familiar names and same folks showing up. Okay. I should get going. I don't want to waste your time. Send me email, Tyler at teasingoneday if I can help with any Tyler at teasingoneday.com if I can help with anything. And I will let everybody know. When my next live is. I end of this week, and then we'll do some stuff coming up, the coming week or whatever. And as always, just let me know if I can help with anything. And I look forward to talking to you soon. All right. Later.